start the recording. Excellent. Well, we'll begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my badass Blender lesson / beginner tutorial. I hope we've all got Blender downloaded, installed, and up and running. You should see pretty much exactly what I've got here. The little splash screen that comes up. You can just leave all of those settings on default and then just click off. If this is your first time running Blender, you'll probably want to tune into my stream as well, because I'll be sort of showing what I'm doing as we go along. So the objective for this lesson is just basic stuff. We'll be focusing on some exercises to get you familiar with the way you can use this software to depict things in 3D. So we're focusing just on basic primitives and a little bit of Blender's modifier system. There's no expectations. If you have done visual art or 3D before, that's okay. But if you've never touched this stuff, that'll work just fine for you as well. Another assumption is that you have a 3-button mouse, left, right, middle mouse, and a numpad on your keyboard. I think you can go without the numpad, but the 3-button mouse will probably be very important. And also a Windows keyboard with Control, Alt, Shift, and none of that Mac crap. But I'm sure you can make it work if you've got a Mac. Anyway, the very first thing we'll talk about is the camera. So in Blender, you press the middle mouse button for all of your camera operations. If you just hold it, you will orbit around. You'll be able to look at your model from all angles. And then you can hold the shift key to pan it. So why don't you try that now? Orbiting, panning, moving around. Beautiful. You can just scroll the wheel to zoom in and out, or hold Control and click the middle mouse for a nice smooth zoom. Wow, amazing. So I'm immediately going to get into some technical stuff regarding the camera. In Blender, there is an invisible point that your camera is sort of fixed to. So this is the point that it orbits around. This is the point that it zooms in towards. And it can be the root of a lot of annoying problems when you're trying to move around the viewport. So I'll just sort of demonstrate. Like if I pan all the way over here, I'm now panning around an invisible point right here. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, and then you say, oh, I want to look at my cube, and then you try zooming in, but then something like this happens, where you kind of get stuck. You're zoomed right up to that invisible point, and you can't go any further. So on top of just the middle mouse controls, there's also a few extra buttons that can help you position the camera where you want. Numpad del will focus the camera on anything you have selected, and that one is very good for getting out of those annoying situations or just focusing the camera on what you want. You can also hold Alt and middle mouse click, and that will position that invisible point under where your mouse cursor is. This is going to be very hotkey heavy, I'll also mention. I am a big proponent of using hotkeys instead of clicking on gizmos and menu buttons, but I'll go over for each of those hotkey actions where you find the operation in the interface, that sort of thing. But that's the camera. Oh, one more thing. You can press Shift and back quote, so the tilde key, and that'll give you like a first-person control, and then you can scroll the mouse wheel to speed up or slow down your movement. And the controls are listed at the bottom of your screen down here. But that's it for the camera. Let's get to modeling. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to model a fire hydrant. This is a very simple sort of primitive shape. We're not going to focus on every single detail, but rather just creating sort of an approximate representation of a fire hydrant. So I've sent in the chat a beautiful picture of a fire hydrant. Behold it in all its majesty. Save this somewhere on your computer. And once we've all got that downloaded, we can move on to the first step of the modeling, which will be adding it in as a reference. Just react to it with a guide dog or a monkey picture once you've got that downloaded. How many people are in the VC right now? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so yeah, react to the guide dog once you've got it. Got 8. I'll just assume, I'll wait a little bit more actually. Don't want to assume anything. I think we've got maybe 1 or 2 people here just spectating. Clear. Okay, I think we can move on. So we will want to add this image to the origin point. If you've still got your cube in your scene, which hopefully you do, just click on the cube and then press numpad del. Does home, I think, home will...
views everything.
Home views everything. That's actually a key. I didn't know. I know the janky one where you press like no numpad.
Home isn't on the numpad.
I think... Which one is it? Is it here? Well, you can alt middle click on the cube and that should help you with that. Okay, you've got home. Awesome. So the first thing we'll do is add the fire hydrant image as a reference in our Blender file. So you can add stuff to your scene from this little menu that says add. And this is where I start pointing out the hotkeys. When you hover over just about any menu or any operation, it'll also tell you the shortcut key. I recommend doing your best to learn and remember those shortcuts because they'll just speed up and save your right hand having to move around and precision click all the buttons. So the shortcut for that, Shift A, and then we'll want to go down and add an image and add a reference image. This will open up your file browser. I've got mine saved in here, but just navigate to wherever you've got that saved and it will plonk it into the scene, probably like this, orienting where the camera was initially. So once we've all got that in, I'll give you a few moments. Next, we'll probably want to position this so that it's not like at a funky angle. So what we are going to do, over here next to the sort of, what is this called? A gimbal axis gizmo. There's this little arrow that if you click on will expand this menu. And hopefully you've got items selected and you'll have all of the transforms for your selected object. There is also a hotkey for this menu. It's N for nobody, and that will open and close that little menu. So what we can do is we can change the rotation of our selected reference so that it is laying down flat or is flat against sort of the view that we want. So give me a quick second. We can change these values in a number of ways. You can click and drag on them like they're a slider to move the values up and down. The arrows will let you move up in tiny increments, or you can click in and just type in the values you want, say 0. The other thing you can do, which is a very powerful little feature, is if you click and then drag down across multiple values, you can change all of them simultaneously. You can use the slider effect, or if you just click down and let go, you can type in a number. So let's do that. Let's click down, select them all, type in 0. Beautiful. So now it's laying flat on the ground. We'll want it facing us. So this is where I mention the different axes, the different directions in the 3D space. So this might be familiar to some of you, but in 3D, you've got the 3 different directions, X, Y, and Z. Depending on which software you use, they will actually represent, those letters will represent a different sort of direction. So a common thing is, well, in Blender, you've got Y for forwards and backwards, but a lot of the time, Y will actually be up and down. What you can do, give me a quick sec. Actually, no, yeah. So if we want to rotate this so that it's facing us, we'll want to rotate it around the x-axis, which is the red line here. So you just type in for the x 90 degrees, boom. And then we want to move it forwards on the y-axis, so we can just click and drag y and scroll it up a little bit like that. Coolio. Awesome. So now we'll actually get on to modeling our beautiful little fire hydrant. The very first thing we will do is the classic function, which is to delete the cube and get it out of the way. So select the cube, and then you can press, well, I believe you can find it up in the menu here, object and delete, but you can see hotkey X. Very simple. Delete the cube. Boom. Get rid of that bastard, that motherfucker. I hate them. That's not true. That's not very fair to the cube. But we don't need the cube. What we need is a nice primitive object, primitive piece of geometry that will represent this fire hydrant. So I'm gonna throw it to you guys. What do you think for the body of the fire hydrant? Just this sort of part here. What primitive piece of geometry do you think we could use? We've got platonic solids like cubes and spheres. Any suggestions? Oh, cylinders. Yes. That is exactly what we want. So we'll add in a beautiful cylinder, a circular prism, to create the body of the fire hydrant. So we can add an object from the menu or with Shift A. First option here is mesh. This contains all of your basic solids made of vertices and that kind of stuff. Oh my god, the GIF Wuxa posted of the clapping cylinder. That's funny. I just wanted to draw attention to that. Anyway, we'll add in a mesh cylinder. So don't touch anything once you've got that in, because we will want to change the parameters of the cylinder, the way it's come in. So if we go down to the bottom left, you'll see this little menu here. Most, if not all, operations will have a little expandable menu here that has the parameters for the action you just performed. So in this case, we've got all these options for the cylinder. They, I think, are quite self-explanatory. The location and rotation effect, how it comes into the scene. The radius and depth, well, the width and the height, respectively. And the vertices as basically the mesh resolution of the object that we have added. So in 3D polygonal modeling, everything is made up of vertices, edges, and faces. And the amount of these that you have is basically the amount of detail that the model will have. A rule of thumb, when you're working with polygonal models, is less detail is easier to work with, and you can then, it's preferable, aim to create models that have less vertices, that are less detailed, and then add in that detail later using non-destructive methods. So basically a modifier that will take your low resolution model and add in more detail, smooth it out so that you can continue to work with that simplified low res mesh. So how many vertices do we want? I typically recommend a number that is a factor of 4, primarily because it's good. Well, this is just my opinion. I don't really know. But it's good to have one of these vertices, one of the edges, aligned with each of the axes. So if we set it to factor of 4, let's say 12, you can see we've got an edge lining up with the red with the x-axis and an edge lining up with the y-axis. So that's generally good for like symmetry and other specific operations. Ooh, pardon me. So if we want to get it in the right shape, the right size for... Oh, pardon me again. Gee whiz. The right shape and size for the fire hydrant, what we'll want to do is enter into an orthographic view. So by default, you're in perspective mode, which basically means the further things are from your point of view, the smaller they will get. But in orthographic view, there is no perspective foreshortening or anything like that. So to enter into orthographic view, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I'll draw your attention to the little axis. I don't know what the word is for this. It's a little axis ball, I guess. But we can click on any of these axes to switch to an orthographic view. So if we click on -y, boom, a beautiful front view. Always check the top left here when you're in ortho mode to see which direction you're looking. Another mistake people make is they get into the left view and they model things like it's the front. Anyway, so we'll want to go look at the front of the fire hydrant, and then we can just mess with our parameters to get a shape that matches our reference. So we can use the location and the width. So just get that looking nice and lined up. Amazing. Coolio. So, yeah. So that's the body. That's the first part of the fire hydrant. What we will do next, what we'll do next is we'll model the flat base here, this sort of part. And the way we are going to do this is we will just duplicate the cylinder that we've got here, and then we will start transforming it. So, to duplicate an object, you can find the option in the object menu. You can see right here, duplicate objects. The shortcut is Shift D. So I'll just click that, and it will start moving it around with your mouse. So if I were to left click, it would sort of commit it to the position that I've moved it to. But if I right click, it will have created the duplicate, but not moved it whatsoever. So do that now. Duplicate your cylinder, right click to keep it in that position, and then we will transform it to get it to the size and shape that we want. So I will draw your attention now to our toolbar over on the left. Currently we've got the selection tool enabled. These three here are the move, rotate, and scale operations. So when you click on them, you can see you get these beautiful gizmos. Just about every 3D software has something like this where you can click on these nice little arrows to reposition, to rotate, and to scale stuff. So we could feasibly use these to change the shape of the cylinder, like so. We can just click and drag to make that shorter. We can then click on this little square here to scale on every axis except the Z-axis, and we can sort of fan it out like that. Switch back to the move tool and move it down. Of course, the thing about this method is it is not using hotkeys. Let me sneeze. Okay, I'm done sneezing. Thank you. So, gizmos are all well and good. They're a nice visual indication of, where you're moving stuff. But I am a hotkey evangelist, so I'm now going to walk you through how to do what we just did with hotkeys. I'm going to just Control Z to undo. I'm sure we're all familiar with that classic key combo. So when we hover over our beautiful tools, we can see the shortcut it's got a little, it says Shift Spacebar and G. So Shift Spacebar actually just brings up your whole toolkit under your cursor, which can be useful if you've got, I don't know. But what the G key will do is it will begin a transform operation. So now if we want to constrain the operation, so move it just up and down, we can press the axis key that corresponds. We can press the keyboard key that corresponds with the axis we want to constrain it to. So in this case, I just want to move it on the up and down, the Z axis, press the Z key, and then it will be nice and constrained. So I'll move it down here, sort of towards the bottom, G and Z. Next, if I want to scale, I can press S. See, it goes up and down, but then I can constrain on the Z axis. Awesome. The next thing will be, so we use this little blue square with the gizmo to scale it. So to scale it on every axis except Z. The way we do this with hotkeys, press S, and then we hold Shift, and then we press the axis key that we want to sort of remove from our transform. So Shift and Z will enable us to scale it like so. Using the hotkeys, a W to swap back to select as well. Using the hotkeys is generally going to be faster. It's easier to just press G or to just press S or to just press R than it is to manually go and change your gizmo and move your mouse and potentially miss and have to move the camera. This is my hill that I will die on. Frankly, you can model in whichever way you are most comfortable with. But that's the base of the fire hydrant. Next, we model... give me a quick second, I'm checking my notes. Next, we will model the top of the this part, the sort of horizontal part. So what we can do is we'll just duplicate the cylinder here again, right click to leave it go. Make use of all of the transforms we've learned. I guess the next thing will be rotating. So we know how to rotate by pressing R and then constrain it on the Y axis. But in this case, we want to rotate it exactly 90 degrees. So we could type that in on the Y axis here, just type in 90. But what we can do, and this is another benefit of using the hotkeys instead of the gizmo, is if we start, press R, press Y, we can then just type in the rotation value that we want. So I can just now press 90 for 90, and there you go, you've rotated it 90 degrees. Holy cow. I'll go back into front orthographic view and just start transforming it so it looks more like the reference. Cool. Okay, give me a quick second. Another thing I'll talk about is how this cylinder is just stuck inside this cylinder. So this is called clipping. I think some of you 3D gamers might be familiar with this. Clipping is acceptable in different contexts. So, yeah, it depends on sort of the standards and the contexts of your model, whether or not this is acceptable. So, the main reason why we typically avoid clipping stuff into each other is because the stuff that is inside the cylinder that we can't see, if we were, say, wrapping a texture, a 2D image around that 3D shape, that space in the 2D image that is pretty much wasted on the hidden stuff. So that's a reason why that I've written down in my notes. But in this case, while we're just blocking things out, we're just trying to make it a primitive shape. This is totally fine. So we can now go and model some of the other stuff. We could say if we wanted to do this top lip, we could just duplicate the bottom, Shift D and Z. So if you want to now, just go and try model some of these other parts. Scale it down, move it in, that kind of stuff. I'll duplicate this part and then rotate it 90 degrees. Scale it on the y-axis. Typically, you'll do hundreds and hundreds of transformations to get the shapes that you want. For the top here, we could add a different primitive. We could add a cylinder. So if I go Shift A, not a cylinder, a sphere. So you can see the sphere. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. How are we all going? How are our fire hydrants? I keep forgetting that this is a lesson and not a lecture. Does anyone need me to go back or to slow down or... Oh yes, so I'm just going to get rid of this and get rid of these, and I'll just quickly demonstrate that again. So if I just duplicate this, move it up. So when you rotate using the hotkeys, so if you press R and then constrain it on the y-axis, at this point you can then, holy shit, you can then just start typing in the rotation that you want. So you can then type 9, 0. Coolio. But yes. Yeah. So I think just getting familiar with how you can use each of these operations will be key to proficiency at 3D modeling. If we want to model this sort of dome on the top, we could just add a UV sphere. The parameters for the sphere are a little different than the cylinder because we've got the two axes. So this is an annoying thing about, just in response to Robin asking, how do you get the menu that lets you pick the amount of subdivisions on the cylinder? Yeah, Blender's default primitive system doesn't let you change the divisions on your objects after you add them in. So if you add a cylinder or a sphere and then you do anything else, like if I moved it, I can no longer change those parameters. There is an add-on it's probably my favorite add-on called Wonder Mesh. It's a little gimmicky, but it does enable you to go in and do that. And I think, well, I'm not going to go over that. Yeah. This is why I made a point of saying don't click on anything else, don't click off, don't move, because with the default primitives, you do lose your ability to change your parameters. There is an add-on, a free add-on called Wonder Mesh. Yes, it's I think with the latest version of Blender, it's a little buggy, but my beautiful friend Hugh made a slightly modified version that is slightly less buggy, and I might upload that to Discord. But we're not gonna worry about that for now. What we'll do is we'll just add in the sphere on top of the fire hydrant. So you can see this one has segments and rings. Segments, I guess, in lieu of a complicated verbal explanation, you can just modify your parameters and see the effects that they have. In this case, I'll go with like maybe 8. Yeah. It looks a little tall, so I can scale it on the Z axis. Yeah, a beautiful fire hydrant. Okay, so we will take a quick little breather. If you guys would like to, please share with us how your fire hydrant is looking. Take a little screenshot. Post it in the chat. I'm going to quickly run off to the loo, and then we will move on to the next modeling task, which will be this chair. So save those files. I'm going to go to the bathroom, and when I get back, we'll continue. Exactly. Made of cubes. I have returned. What a magnificent fire hydrant. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I like the detail Alex is putting in, the different sort of levels. Yeah, this is sort of a key skill with 3D modeling, is decomposing your subject into those primitive shapes. Sort of a mistake I think a lot of beginners fall into is they want to work on the mesh, they want to extrude and weld and mess with the vertices much too early in the process, when it's best to always work with as simple a basis as you possibly can and try to figure out the shape and proportion of your 3D model before you worry about sort of the technical requirements of topology and that sort of stuff. Excellent. Oh, beautiful, beautiful ribbon. Also, feel free, everyone, um, to unmute at any time and to ask a question or to tell me to go back or to slow down, anything like that. Oh, that is a beautiful fire hydrant. 7 year. So I see you've got the cylinder on facing the Y axis. You could select that and scale it on the Y, pressing the S and the Y key, and then bring that forward. I'm pretty sure with the real life fire hydrant, it is just protruding out of one side. Coolio. But so before, I think it's about time to move on. But before we do that, you can save your beautiful fire hydrant. I'm sure we're all fairly familiar with saving a file. You can find it, File, and Save. Just press Control Shift S or just Control S. I'll save mine as fire hydrant. Amazing. Once you've got your beautiful fire hydrant saved, you go File, New, General, and we'll be back with our magnificent cube. So, I'm just going to send a... Hold on, what am I going to send? I'm going to send this smiling face emoji. Just react to this once you're back on the blended defaults. Just react with the stress emoji.
That's such a good emoji.
It's a good one. The rule from now on is whomever puts in the first emoji reaction is the one everyone has to click on. Beautiful. Oh, pardon me. Okay, I have way less notes on this portion of the lesson, so it'll be a bit more ramshackle, but I hope that's okay. But basically, we'll be modeling the Vimley IKEA chair that I sent images before. I hope everyone has that one saved. I'll let you guys add in the reference images yourself. I'm not gonna bother talking through every single hotkey. Just add in those reference images, just like before. Oh, actually, I will explain something. What you can do, if you have your file browser open, like I do here, you can actually just click and drag into your scene, and boom, your reference images will pop up as well. Okay, yeah, actually, if I can have your attention once more, I'll explain a few little things that you can do, or I'll just expound upon some of the stuff I explained earlier. So, we've got these two images in. I explained before that you can do this cute little click and drag and type in a value to reset the rotation. But what I didn't tell you is that there is also a hotkey to zero out location and rotation and scale as well. So you perform moving and rotating by pressing G and R, scaling with S. If you hold Alt and press the corresponding key, it will zero out the relevant transform. So using that, Alt and G and Alt and R, we can reset the rotation. That is my favorite one. It's very useful in animation, because you'll pose a character and then be like, okay, I need this to be back in the default pose, that sort of thing. But what we'll do, this isn't exactly an orthographic schematic, so we're just going to keep this in the scene just for reference, just so we can see what it's supposed to look like. Anyway, I'll just position these kind of like this, Alt G and Alt R. Then I'll press G and Shift Z. This is sort of my favorite way to move things around, just sort of scrubbing along the floor, just like that. And then we can get to modeling. I'm going to put another emoji in the chat. React to this emoji once you've got your references in, kind of like how I've got. You got to react with Rainbow Lugia. Lugia? Chair image is copy message link. It's this one. Epic Zor's chair. Awesome. Okay, I have a strong inclination to keep calling everyone gamers, because at my job I do that. I walk people through the safety stuff for playing a VR game, and I always say, "Okay, gamers." So I'm just gonna do that from now on. Okay, gamers, let's have a go at modeling this chair. So fortunately it is made of some very boxy shapes. So we've got a box here. We can just follow some of these schematic instructions to get this chair. So the blueprint image I've got here has the dimensions for each sort of part of the chair. So this is where I bring up modeling things to scale. So if you take a look at the transform panel here, N key or the little caret to open that up, if we select the cube by clicking on it, we can see dimensions. This is a 2 meter cubed cube. So this cube is, pardon my French, very big. It is a large cube. If I use the shift back quote first person view and just sort of get to position, this cube sort of stands above me by like a full, not like a full meter, but like around 30 centimeters. It's a full foot taller. So it's a bloody big cube. So make sure it's useful to have some sort of scale reference. Hello, Seth. Scale reference. I'm recording all of this, so you'll be able to catch up that way as well. It's useful to have a scale reference to sort of know how big the thing you are modeling is. In this case, we do just have specific instructions for how big each thing should be, so we can just follow them. Unfortunately, not every single part is labeled, so we'll have to do a bit of basic arithmetic. This will start off by modeling the part in the middle, this sort of part here. I can hold D and draw my little annotation. That part there. We can see 48 centimeters from the floor to the top of the cushion. I'm going to assume that the cushion is around 22 centimeters tall, and we can see that the little foot is 6 centimeters. So doing some quick maths, that's 26. It's about 20 centimeters tall. So tall, that is the z-axis. I can literally type in 20cm and it will make it 20 centimeters tall. Assuming that it is as deep as the whole chair, we can see that is 98 centimeters depth. That's on the green line. The y-axis, just type in 98 cm. And the width, 71 centimeters. 71 cm. Boom. So now you can see it's a lot smaller than our 2 by 2 meter tungsten cube. But fortunately, it's how big it should be. Amazing. So we've got this. Next, let's model the armrests on either side. So we can just duplicate this cube and move it to this. Oh god, sorry, excuse me. I should not be drinking this bloody monstrous energy. It's making me gaseous. But yes. So, the dimensions of the armrest, it should be, this time it is 22 centimeters on the x-axis, and it looks like 54 centimeters, 54 take 6 for the footstool is 48 centimeters tall. Cool. So now we are going to talk about snapping. Up in the header bar here, we have this little horseshoe. Well, actually, it is a magnet. If you click it on, you'll get this beautiful magnet icon with the lightning bolt. And this will enable snapping whenever we perform our movement operation. You click on the drop down to get some detailed information about how you are snapping stuff. The only things I think you'll have to worry about for now are these snap to options, the snap with options, and the affect options. So we can see it is set to snap to increment. So what this will basically do is it will move it one grid space, or it will snap it to a grid space every time we move it. So if I press G and just sort of move my mouse, you can see snapping on the grid. Very simple. If we want to stick it to the side of our armrest, we can just go and change that from increment to vertex. But before we do that, remember, hotkeys. If you hover over this, you'll see that you can toggle snapping on and off with Shift Tab. It doesn't have a hotkey here, but there is one. It is Control Shift Tab, and that will open up that exact same menu under your mouse, which might just be slightly easier depending on how hotkey inclined you are. Also, furthermore, you can hold Control while you're performing your transform. So if I disable snapping and I press G to start moving and I hold Control, then it will start snapping. The way snapping works is it will snap to the element. So the snapping element is vertices. It'll snap to the element that is closest to your mouse cursor. So if I press G and hold Control, it will not snap based on where the object itself is, but where my mouse is. So you can see once I hover over one of the corner vertices of this cube, then it will start snapping. Hell, even if I move my mouse all the way over here, all the way up in the corner, I move my mouse all the way down here, and I hold Control, and then it will just snap to it. Awesome. React to this emoji once you have snapped your cube to the side of this cube. Beautiful, beautiful. You can if you want to, Seth. It's okay if you also want to spectate. Beef stew type chair. Unfortunately, we're making the cube type chair. Ree. Okay. If you need a reminder or some help or whatever, just let me know.
I'm having trouble with the snapping.
I would love to help you. Do you want to share your screen? I can give you directions.
Yeah, sure.
Let's take a look. We're now all watching your stream.
I set it to face nearest, but that doesn't. That's not.
You'll want to
yeah.
use the vertex snapping. So set it to vertex.
Okay, vertex.
And then it is, even if you use the gizmos, it's dependent on where your mouse is. So if you click and drag, yeah.
Oh,
Just like that.
That looks right.
So if you click and drag on the white circle in the middle of the gizmo, that will just move it omnidirectionally relative to the camera. But remember that it does snap based on where your mouse is. So you'll want to move your mouse over the vertex that you want to snap it to.
Oh, on the vertex.
Yes.
Okay.
So because the snapping is based on which part of your object is the closest, what you can do is you can just move it up just any amount. So click on the blue arrow and drag that up, and keep your mouse away from the other vertices. So now, if you let go, if you commit it to that, and then if you just drag and hover over that corner vertex, so click on the white circle and like do a move and drag over that corner vertex. Now it should be flush as hell. Nice.
Perfect.
Quick question.
Yes, Seth.
I missed the first part. Is how tall is the seat you're making? The X and Y, not the Z.
If you go, you can download the reference image.
Well, it's gone now.
Well,
no, I literally just can't read it from the thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hold on.
0.4, you have it? Someone pointed at 0.2. Okay.
The total
I was wondering where you got the 0.2 from.
It's because on the schematic, the height of the armrest is actually measured from the floor and not from the bottom of the rectangle. So I just subtracted.
So the height of the armrest is 0.48.
Yeah.
Because the foot is 6 centimeters.
Oh, you're not even making it a seat yet.
Yeah. No, we're making the non-cushiony parts. We're making this part.
That's what I was getting confused on. I was like, what the fuck? What's happening here?
And this part.
Alright, but still 0.2 up. Alright, I got it.
No sweat, boss. Thank you, Wixer, for linking the images again. Coolio.
I'm slowly catching up. And by slowly, I mean really fucking quickly.
Damn. Well, I'm assuming so because you've been using Blender a bit. Okay. So.
I know how to press N.
Press the F key on your keyboard. Okay, gamers. What we are going to do now, the other armrest is just a mirror image of this armrest. So for those of you who know a bit about Blender, you might know what we're going to do next. We're going to add our first modifier. Over here, this little region is our properties panel, properties area. We'll want to click on this spanner icon, the modifier properties. And now we are going to select the armrest here, and we're going to add a modifier. So, got a few categories here. Generate. These modifiers will basically add new geometry. Adds new geometry from what you've already got. And deform will simply change the shape of the geometry that is there. So generate, we get new vertices, new faces, that kind of stuff. And deform just moves around what's already there. What we want is to make a mirror. So just add a mirror modifier. Boom. It seems like nothing has happened. And the reason for this is because the mirror modifier is mirroring this armrest based on where its origin point is. So this little orange dot here, this is the object's origin. The location is where this orange dot is. So even if the actual vertices of the cube were all the way over here, if the orange dot is here, that's where it says the transform is. So a cube mirroring over itself, mirroring perfectly in the center, won't look any different. We want to change where it is mirroring from. We have a very simple way of doing this. We can change the mirror object. So we can either click in here and find the relevant object, or we can click on the eyedropper tool and then just find it in the scene. That's because you're a genius, Seth. You've also done this before. This is for beginners, okay? So now we have a beautiful mirrored armrest. The next thing we'll do... Oh, yes.
Mine does not do that.
Well, that's because you need my help. And I will
Yes.
provide. Would you like to
Let's go.
share?
Okay. Can you see it all right?
Yes.
Okay. So mirror object, eyedropper, and then click the thing in the middle.
So this is because of the axes. When you are mirroring on the... Okay. When you are mirroring on the x-axis, it will basically move it from one side of the line, the red line, to the other. And on the y-axis, it'll move from one side of the line to the other. So this is another tricky thing with 3D modeling, is sort of which way is the forward direction.
Yep.
So
this, they're aligned on the x-axis. So mirroring it was just in place. But when I
yeah.
mirrored over the y-axis, it just worked. Okay.
Yes. But we should be modeling so that, if I'll just go back to mine, that the y-axis is running through the object like this.
Okay.
Because y is like the forwards and backwards direction, and x is like the left and right direction.
Oh shit.
This can be a tricky thing as well. It's just one of those things you have to sort of ingrain in your memory.
Yeah.
You should be facing towards like positive Y, right?
Yeah, positive y should be pointing towards the horizon.
So
Yeah.
I rotated it and it worked for that. How do I get it back on the origin though?
So do you remember how to zero
So when
out the transforms?
Yeah, I get this when I do that.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So the middle part will be on the origin, and you'll just have to reposition the armrest to be snapped to the side.
I see. Okay. That's fine.
And you might
All
want
right,
the you
I'll-
might want your reference images somewhere good
Yeah.
as well.
I'll work on that then.
No
Thank you.
worries. Coolio. Okie dokie. So the beautiful seat. The next thing, if you want to, the next thing you can do, well, whether or not you want to, the next thing you will do is model the little feet here using pretty much the exact same method. You make your cylinder primitive, give it a mirror modifier, and then you select the body here as the origin. I'll give, just because I think some of us have to catch up, I'll give you a bit of time if you want to try and do that yourself. And then I'll explain, or I'll show how I will do it. So modeling these little footstools just with a cylinder and a mirror modifier. Remember, if you need my help, just say and I'll help you.
I need your help.
I will help you. Okay, oh, I've got to... Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when I mirror it, it's not lined up. Oh, perfect.
Oh. Can you select the middle part for me? Okay, that's interesting. And if you select the armrest, that is interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know why the process I'm
Oh,
using is
it's
yeah, I got
because you're not using the cube, you're using the reference image as as your pivot.
Oh,
'Cause
oh,
the
and I have the reference image kind of funky,
kind of
kind of twisty.
humongo.
I did not realize. Okay,
Yes.
maybe I'll try
I
from over
haven't
here.
yeah,
Uh,
you just yeah, you can click on it should when you hover over it, it should say cube.
mm,
And now you've got the same issue I think Alba has, where your armrest is on the y-axis and not on the x-axis. So if you
mm.
eyedropper the middle part, and then in the mirror modifier, if you change the axis from x to y,
Oh, what the heck?
yeah, so untick
It's got an axis
x.
setting.
Yeah,
Man. Okay,
yeah.
well,
So
that looks.
I will impress that upon you as well. Is you'll want the y-axis to be like your forwards and backwards direction, and then you'll want the armrests to be sort of aligned on the x-axis. Ah, amazing work, Ribbon. Good stuff on those little footstools. Yeah, give us a little bit more if some of us need to catch up or if they need some help before I go over the little footstools. So yes, always remember, you want things to be looking along the y-axis and for the x-axis to be like the left and the right sides. So this will be the object's left side, this will be its right side. Because it's technically should be looking this way. It's a bit funny. That looks like a big butt. I'm going to undo that. Great work, Zavanier. Great work, Wuxa. I can see Wux is adding in a bevel. A little beveling. How quaint. How quaint. Bit of a cheeky bevel. Nick, great work. Nick Shalark, Seth. the goated bevel. Excellent work, Alba. Good stuff. Okie dokie. So, I see quite a few of us have already got the footstools down pat. Yes. Oh, fantastic diagram. Thank you. Thank you, commuters. "3D mathematics." Oh, I think the y positive and y negative you've got around the wrong way. PL chair tower. Nick has added in array modifiers. Yeah, I think the little diagram, the positive and negative on the x and y, I think are around the wrong way or around the other way. The wrong way? Well, whatever. if I add X, then it moves this way. And this is the front view. So this should be looking at the front of the object. At any rate, I'm going to add in the little footsies. So, yep, just add a cylinder. Make sure the vertices are low. I'll just go 12. So, I might, in my little demonstration of how I would do the footsies, I'll show you how I would use... Whoa! That's crazy, Robin. See, Robin's got the mint flavored y-axis. That's good. That's good. It's like slightly paler.
Boy, I'd sure love to sit on that chair.
I think we're having a. I think we're illustrating in real time the contention about the axis directions. Oh my god. You made all of yours blue? That's no good. I swear to God, I swear on my mother and my father that Y negative is pointing the way the object should be like facing. So the back would be here and it would be looking towards Y negative. But
I'm forgetting everything I've learned today to make space for the Axis discourse. Let's get into it.
But let's not worry about that too much for now. So I'll quickly show you how I would do the feet. I've added in my tiny little baby cylinder. I'm going to use a bit of face snapping. And I'm going to move it to like roughly this position. And again, just add a mirror modifier, eyedropper the center. Yeah, as simple as that. So the next thing we are going to model is probably is for calculus, but in this particular context, I think it might be different. But now we are going to model the back. So the back is one of the darkest and most evil parts of this model. I think it doesn't have a size or a scale reference. So we're just going to assume and infer what shape it is. I'm going to say that it probably has the same width as the armrests, so 22 centimeters. What I'll do, I'll just duplicate this part, shift and X so that it doesn't move left and right. It removes the X-axis. So it should be 22 centimeters along this way. So what I'll do is just 22 centimeters on the Y. I'll use vertex snapping to move it so that it's snapped, nestled nice in there. I'll just scale it up an arbitrary amount. Do it again.
I got a question.
A question.
When you're like doing snapping, is there a way to change like which face is going to be the one that snaps? Because I was getting problems where it's like the top one or the bottom one, kind of arbitrary.
So, like which part of your object gets snapped to?
Yeah.
So I think I forgot to mention the snap with option. So by default, it should be set to closest. So that means it will try and snap the closest part of the active of the transformed object to the surface it's being snapped to. Pardon me. So what that means, because this face is the closest to this part, when I go to snap on face mode, it will snap that part. But if, say, this face is the one closest to this face, then it will snap that one to that face. The simple sort of trick, the solution is just to position it first so that the face that you want is the closest, and then it should use that face. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Splendid.
Just wanted to know if there was another trick to it, but I see that we all live in the caveman era.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, how are you setting the
yes.
dimensions of the object from like just hotkeys?
I'm not using hotkeys. I'm typing it in on the dimensions panel from the item panel.
0.71, 0.22, got it.
Yeah. I've made it 0.22 because the armrests are 0.22 wide, but the other dimensions for the back I have just assumed. Holy cow, Robin, you've already got it tapering in. Robin, would you like to share with the class how you've gone about doing that? Oh, you went to edit mode. We're going to try and do it without using edit mode, which will actually make things a lot harder than otherwise. You're a cheater. Flunked. Yeah, I think technically it'd be a lot easier to get this trapezoid shape. The, what's it called? The right angle trapezoid shape. It's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to do this in edit mode, where we edit the actual vertices of the object, than using modifiers. But guess what? We're going to use modifiers because I have committed to this workflow, so we're going to do it that way. Okay, I'm assuming we've got our back modeled in. So I'm going to explain how we would taper this in using a simple deform modifier. This is getting quite tricky, so don't worry if this is too confusing. So if we go add modifier, deform, simple deform, this gives us a bunch of different options. We want it to sort of taper towards the top, so that would be tapering towards the top. That's the z-axis. And then we can just give the factor a negative value. So almost there. We don't want it to get wider or smaller on the x-axis, so we can restrict it. But now the next issue we have is we want this side to stay straight, but this side to be affected by the tapering. The way we can do this is, again, to use a custom origin, a custom to specify an object, an origin point that we want the tapering to be based around. So again, this is a lot simpler if you just move the edge in edit mode, but I'm going to give you the full explanation of how I would do this with the simple deform. So we can add what is called an empty. So Shift A, empty. Every empty is just, it's not a mesh, it doesn't have any information other than a location, a rotation, and a scale. All of these, the only thing that's different is the sort of visual representation of the empty. So let's add in nothing yet, because we are going to reposition the 3D cursor so that it is positioned right here on the edge, right in the center, so that it is tapering towards the edge of the back here. So if we want to reposition the 3D cursor, we've got the tool in the toolbar. Now if we have that selected and we just click, it will position the cursor, and it will generally, I believe, well, it seems to be floating anywhere. It should be snapping to surfaces. Well, there we go. That looks like it's snapping to a surface. Yeah, snaps to the surface under your cursor when you just click and drag. And you can also snap it. So if we go and we click here, let's choose edge center. So now if we click, hold control or enable snapping, and then we can snap it to the center of the edge here. Oh, if we do it right. Okay, cool. So the 3D cursor has a few different functions, but the main thing for now is the 3D cursor is where objects get added to the scene. So if the 3D cursor was over here, and say we added a cube, the cube will spawn in basically where the 3D cursor is. So let's put it back here, snap it, hold control. Now, if we add in our empty plane axes, again, this is just a sort of visual representation. It doesn't affect anything, but I'm still going to change the radius so that it's less obtrusive. Now, if we go back to our back, we can eyedropper it. Because the images are also called empties, it's 002, but now you can see we have a nice tapered back, and then we can just use our modifier to control the size of it. Isn't that nice? Okay, if you'd like to, please go ahead and give this a go and let me know if it is confusing or you're having difficulty, anything like that. I'll put in another funny little emoji that you can react to once you've got that sorted. My hope with this is that by just seeing what the taper does and how it works and how you can constrain it like that, it might be putting ideas in your head for how you can use it in other contexts. Simple Deform was one of those modifiers I slept on for the longest time, but it actually makes things super easy and super good.
Okay, with Simple Deform, like what is actually happening? How does putting it on that back edge make it so it's always flat back there?
So, the way it works, because it is tapering, basically what tapering does is it will try and, depending on where the origin point is, it will move the vertices of the object further away or closer to the origin point, whether they are above or below it, or on either side of the selected axis. Okay, fuck. Bit of a convoluted explanation. But if I turn off the X restriction, you can see it's trying to squash these vertices towards where the empty is. So if I move this on the Y-axis, you can see it's trying to squash them towards them. So the 3D cursor, you can use it here, but if you just turn on snapping and set it to edge center, you can just hold control and that should, yeah, and you hover over it. You have to find the center of the edge, but it should then snap to it like that. You can also hold shift and right click to place the 3D cursor at any time, and then hold control to also enable snapping. Oop. If you need me to help you out. Yeah, shift, it's annoying. If you press control and shift and then right click, you'll do a lasso select or a lasso deselect, I think. Yeah. So you have to hold shift and then right click and then hold control and then you will snap. Snap-a-lackin'. If you need me to help you out with your specific, with you specifically, just ask me and I shall help to the best of my ability. And react to the bunny with the germ once you've got that. infect the rabbit. No, it's okay. The next thing I was going to do was the cushions, and I was going to give them a bevel. Don't patronize me. I'm sick of your condescension. Woo, woo.
Mine's looking pretty weird.
I will help you, Alex. I will help you.
Yeah. Come on.
Whoa! So you want to swap from twist to taper.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go.
And then you want to change the axis that it is being tapered on as well.
Okay.
That's a funny look.
It's a funny looking thing.
Yeah, just try messing with the parameters. Look at the restrictions under, like the restriction little drop down. So don't worry about the limits, but locking the axes. That'll be what you want.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Looks pretty crazy. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I think. Yeah, I don't know.
You wanna, yeah, like that, and you can
Oh,
give.
this looks kind of right. But like
you
in
can
a
give
weird direction, maybe.
you can give it a negative factor. So if you change the factor from 0.785 to just like scroll it down.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Beautiful, excellent, love your work.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a very nice looking sofa. Awesome. Okay. Looking swagged up, Wixer. Great work. Yes, if you'd like to send. Actually, we'll do the last part, and then I'll get you to send in all your beautiful couches. Excuse me. Gee whiz.
Next, we're doing this with fabric modifier.
The fabric modifier.
We're doing
Even
this with
I'm
fabric
not.
modifier. We're baking it, and then we're just making that the model.
Even I'm not too good at the physics simulation stuff in Blender. But anyway, next we will make our beautiful cushions. So this should be a lot simpler. We really just need another 2 cubes. So I'm just going to duplicate it, scale it in. Pretty sure, yeah, like 0.2 centimeters tall, maybe a bit smaller. I don't think the cushions have any specific dimensions. It says 55 centimeters here, so I'll type that in. I'm gonna snap again. Basically, yeah, just make some cushions. So I can't tell if the cushion is sitting on top of or going behind the back cushion is going behind the butt cushion. I think it might be. Don't know. This is at your discretion. Cool. Okay. So, the next thing, cushions aren't usually perfectly blocky and rectangular, so we might try and smooth them out with the modifier that I notice a lot of you have already started using, the bevel modifier. I'll use this as an opportunity to explain some extra stuff about modifiers as well. The bevel modifier, it'll add in new vertices, new geometry, so that is under generate, bevel. So you can see now it's got a bit of a chamfered edge. Feel free to play around with all the parameters. The main ones you'll want to look at the amount and the segments. So if you add in more segments, it means more geometry, which hopefully should mean slightly smoother. The amount is sort of how far the bevel goes in. And under profile, this changes sort of the shape. So you can even have a bevel that goes that goes inverse, which is quite fun, quite funny. So if we apply that modifier to one object, we probably just want the exact same one on the other cushion. So what we can do is we can copy one modifier to another. And we do this by selecting both of them and then clicking on a little button. I have not actually mentioned how to select multiple objects at once in Blender. The way you do this is you select one, then you hold Shift and you select another one. Boom. And I believe you also click in the same way, Shift and click to deselect. However, there is a specific behavior of Blender selection. The last object you select is the active selection. So the active selection is the object that shows up in your transform. It shows you these transform options and in the properties panel. So it'll only show you the modifiers for your active object. So if I selected my beveled cushion and then my non-beveled one, I wouldn't be able to see the modifier. What you can do to set something as your active object, if you've got it selected, is just Shift and click on it again. And before it deselects it, it will make it the active object. I hope that makes sense. So now we can just click on this little caret here and copy it to the selected object. Boom.
I got a question.
Yes.
Probably be easier for me to stream it, so let me do that real quick. Okay, so I was copying my cushion here. The bevels are messed up, but I'll get to that in a second. More importantly, I wanted the top cushion to be a little bit more thick, so I was trying to scale it, and then I did like Y, and it's like scaling it by world
Press Y
coordinates
again.
instead of oh.
Don't worry about that. You can. This is another thing.
Press X.
Before we do that, I'll just take a moment
it's
to
easy then.
explain more stuff. I was gonna get to this in just a second, but you can just try scaling. Just use the scale option in the item panel. So don't worry about the.
Yeah, I was putting it in manually there before, but
Yeah, you can just use this, the scrolly
It's
wheel.
helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. I will wait.
Yes. Actually, I don't think I was going to mention this specifically, but now that you've brought it up, I will. But in a little bit, I'll explain one more thing. And this might be new information for... this might be new information for some of us who even know about Blender stuff. But let's say we've got these two objects that both have a bevel modifier. Oh, actually, I'm going to move this a little bit. And just line it up perfectly. Okay, so we've got these two objects. Oh, I didn't mention you can hold Alt and drag your mouse to swap between orthographic views really quickly. Drag your middle mouse. That's another random thing, whether or not you remember it. I think I mentioned it in my little reference document, which I will link again at the end of the lesson. But if you've got two objects that have basically the same modifier, and you want to change both of them at the same time, there is a neat little trick you can do to do so. So I will Shift and select both of my cushions here with their bevel modifier. So if I wanted to change one, I would just scroll up and down, but you can see it's only affecting the active object. Just undo that. If I want to affect the same parameter for both of them, I can hold Alt and do the same, and it will affect every selected object that has the same parameter. So both of these objects have a modifier that is labeled bevel that has a parameter amount. So if I hold Alt and scroll on that, it will affect both of them. And I can also hold Alt, click up on the segments, or if I click in and type a value, and I hold Alt and press Enter, it will affect everything. This works not just for modifiers, but all sorts of stuff. I can hold Alt on the location and it will affect both of them as opposed to just one. Very handy if you've got to change a lot of stuff at once. I think what you can also do, if you right click on your values, there's also an option to copy that value to the selected objects. So if I change just this, right click, copy to selected, it'll work like that as well. This is very handy if you have a lot of objects that have pretty much the same stuff that you want to copy between them. So, now I think we've already been sharing our pictures, but if you'd like to, please send us a picture of your beautiful, complete couch.
I love that sound. I wish that was my ringtone.
Boing. Oh, amazing Violet. Tall as fuck.
Can you make it so it's just the footstools that are really tall?
Could do. Is there a way to snap an object to another one's surface when dragging it in object mode? When axis aligned. Would you like to share your screen and I can see if I can help you? Popping this out. Oh, you've got quite a few outliners there.
This is a really old project. But, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done some Blender stuff in the past, but I noticed you doing something I've never seen before, so I have to ask. So I wanted to basically make it so when this gets dragged to that, it stops. Like it hits the surface here and it does the movement.
So, the way snapping works, it is based on where your mouse is. So if you put your mouse in like the bottom right corner of the 3D viewport, that's the left.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. Not to make like a new window, but just like hovering over the 3D world. Yeah. And now if you press G and X, start your transform. It will only snap once your actual mouse cursor is on the face that you want to snap to. So you have to move your mouse all the way over to that face, and then it will snap. I think it looks like you have maybe one other snapping option enabled, so just right click and cancel that. Yeah. So you'll want to untick Align Rotation to Target.
That makes sense. Okay, so then I would put it down there first, and then...
You don't have to put it down there, but that's just to sort of illustrate that it's not the position of the object itself. It's just your mouse. It's just your mouse. So it's about where you put the mouse and not where the object is.
That's a good way of communicating it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Beautiful. It's come up a little bit, but the next sort of thing about your models, which I'm really just going to be explaining. It's kind of hard. I haven't thought up an exercise to help sort of play it out, but is the, I guess, object orientation and object scale. So we've got this cube, this beautiful stuff, Robin and Alex. Has anyone else? If anyone else is still working on their cube, I'll slow down a little bit. The cube, their sofa, their cool ass sofa. couch has been eliminated. Beautiful couch, Seth. Looks extremely comfortable. That's the boo-up chair. You have to calculate all those tries as you get up. And your FPS hits 8. That sounds about right. Okay, so we've pretty much modeled the chair. That's it for the practical stuff that I'll be teaching, but I really want to explain some stuff about... Actually, there is one more step that you can do. Before that step, you'll want to save it. So, Vimly 3. I've made this chair twice already. Make sure you save your beautiful chair. And I want to talk a bit about what objects actually are inside Blender. So I mentioned that an object is represented in object mode just as like an origin point. It's just sort of a location which is offset from the center of the world, which is just 0, 0, 0. So it moves up on the z-axis, moves forward on the y-axis, it doesn't move on the x-axis, and that's where this point is. Basically, for the meshes inside the object, you can think of the object as... Oh, amazing, Wuxer. Great stuff. You can think of the object as just another scene where the vertices and the faces and all that stuff are offset from the origin of the object. So if I add in a cube, and if I now, I'm going to go into edit mode. You don't have to. I'm just going to do this to hopefully illustrate some stuff. So hold on. Yeah, I'll add in a cube that has a 2 meter radius. And if I go into edit mode and I select one of these vertices, you can see that the position of the vertex, it's 1x, 1z, and -1y. So this is the position of the vertex as it is offset from the origin point, from the point that's represented the object in the scene. If I scale this object in any way, if I make it thin, or make it long, or rotate it, or anything like that, the actual coordinate of that vertex has not changed at all. We are basically just... I'm getting cold for some reason. We are basically just squashing and stretching the space inside the object. So what this means is that some, especially generative effects like the bevel, are also squashed. They're also compressed down. If I reset the scale of this cushion with Alt-S, you can see that the bevels around here are sort of more evenly shaped. They are more of a perfect, especially if I increase the segments, you can see it's like an actual, like, perfectly round arc. But with the scaled object, it's not perfect. It's more sort of squashed or like slanted to a particular side. So it's generally good to have a uniform scale with your objects, especially if you're working with animation or you're bringing it to other software and that sort of stuff, or if you're doing any kind of complex mesh editing, because you may think it visually looks okay, it looks normal, but then when you go and you bevel or you add any number of other effects, or if you create a hierarchy between your objects, that can create issues. So the last thing I will get you to do for your beautiful couch object is drag a nice big box over everything, and we are going to apply the scale so it becomes uniform 1 by 1 by 1 scale for all of the objects. to do this, you go to Object, Apply. You can see hotkey Control A, and Scale. And you can see now your bevel effect will have changed, and it's much more sort of evenly smooth. And then we can just do our little Alt drag trick to get that looking nice. But yeah, that is pretty much it. The homework I have for you, I have, I believe 4/5 models for you to make, that you should be able to with pretty much everything you've learned here today. So I've made some examples of them and I'll send screenshots. The first is this sword, this beautiful little sword. This is just using object scale, just using deforms and all that kind of stuff. So homework number 1 is the sword. One sword. Coolio. Homework number 2 is the computer monitor and keyboard. So this one, I'm sure you can see it is incredibly basic, but the keyboard will require using Smash Bros. Announcer voice. Can't wait to make an epic sword for my RPG. Great weapons for homework. Best class ever. Computer monitor and keyboard. So the computer monitor, very simple. This is just, again, do more stuff. Keep making models so that these ideas, these techniques remain fresh in your mind, even if it's something super simple. The keyboard will require using a modifier that I did not mention in the lesson. It is the array modifier. Comes under generate array. It'll be up to you to glean, to figure out how the array modifier works. But I'll take a quick screenshot of this. And I'll send that. Homework number 2. I can't allow Seth to make a horse. If Seth makes a horse, their power level will be too high and we won't be able to stop them. So respectfully, please do not make a horse. The next piece of homework, stairs. This should be pretty basic, but again, you will have to use the array modifier. Ooh, hold on, my big thing is in the way. So homework number 3. Yeah, this will be array modifier and a bit of snapping. Homework number 3, stairs. Stairs are kind of goated, so it's very important that you know how to make that subject. The 4th and final homework is a stickman. I kind of went crazy with my stickman, but yours can be however you want. So I'll take a quick screenshot of Stickmanius. Homework number 4, Stickman. And then actually paste the image. Cool. But that is, in fact, the end. A front-facing author. Yes. In fact, I'll make his feet fan out like that. Okay. Fighting Polygon homie. Stickman. You can make your Stickman however you want. I think I had a little bullet point here for optionally give your Stickman cat ears. So make sure you do that as well. Hold on, I'll do it now. Very important.
Or when are you thinking the next lesson?
I'm not getting as many shifts at my job right now, so maybe actually sooner rather than later. Maybe either in the next week or two. And that lesson, we will definitely be starting on edit mode in mesh editing. But there you go, cat ears. It's as simple as that. Hold on. You can hold D and just click to draw on your models as well. So I'm just gonna give him big glittery anime eyes. Cool. It just kept spamming it in my screen keys. You could use an empty. You are totally free. Message me at any time. In fact, what we might do is we can just hang out in the VC if you want to start working on these models now, and I'll give you all the insights I possibly can. And all the poor, sad, pathetic people who weren't able to make it to the lesson will just have to figure it out on their own. Nah, I'll oh yeah, it wasn't projecting onto the surface, so it just came off his face. If you missed this lesson and are watching this as a recording, you can also just message me, or if I'm in the VC, just pop in and say, Zogingu-san, Zogingu-sensei, how do I do this? And I'll help you. But that is it for the lesson. I'm gonna hit stop on my recording.